I've always been the type of guy who keeps to himself. My wife, Naomi, however, was the complete opposite. Social butterfly, the life of the party, the one who could walk into any room and light it up with her energy. It wasn't always like that. We used to be close, inseparable even. But as the years passed, I found myself slowly fading into the background. Naomi was constantly out and about with her friends, while I stayed home, glued to the couch, barely keeping my thoughts in check. She didn't even seem to notice anymore. I had my suspicions, of course. The late nights at work, the sudden need for me time, the countless unexplained phone calls and texts. But I was too passive to confront her. I wasn't the kind of guy who demanded attention or questioned things. I wasn't built that way. I just let things slide. Every day felt like I was fading more and more from her life, and frankly, I wasn't sure I had the energy to fight for it anymore. Then came that night. Naomi had invited me to one of her friends' parties, which I didn't mind at all. I usually avoided these gatherings, but tonight felt different. Maybe it was the sense of growing tension between us, or maybe I just needed a change of scenery. Regardless, I found myself walking into a room full of her friends, all of them laughing, talking, and carrying on like they always did. And I was there, standing at the edge of the crowd, silently watching, trying to make myself invisible. Naomi was her usual self, at the center of everything, pulling people in with her charm. She barely glanced at me as she joined a group of her close friends. For a while, I just stood there, nursing my drink, thinking about how strange it felt to be in this position. Everyone else was so connected, so at ease. And then there was me, like a ghost hovering at the edge of their lives. But the thing that really set me off wasn't the way Naomi acted toward me, no? It was the way her best friend, Rachel, kept looking at me. There was something odd about her gaze. It wasn't judgmental or overtly suspicious. It was more like recognition, as though she knew something I didn't, something she wasn't telling me. Rachel was always the quiet one in the group, the one who never said much, but always seemed to be observing. It made me uncomfortable, like she was piecing together things I didn't even realize were falling apart. I couldn't take it anymore. I needed to confront Naomi. I needed some kind of clarity, whether I liked the answer or not. I made my way through the crowd, searching for her, until I found her laughing in a corner with a couple of friends. She looked happy, but there was an air of something else there too, something that I couldn't quite put my finger on. I walked up to her, and she barely noticed me until I cleared my throat. "Naomi," I said, my voice calm but firm. "We need to talk." Her eyes widened slightly, a flicker of something crossing her face. Surprise? Guilt? I couldn't tell. But before she could respond, Rachel suddenly appeared at her side. She was smiling, but the smile didn't reach her eyes. It was too forced, too rehearsed. Naomi's attention shifted between me and Rachel for a moment before she finally said, "Not now. I'm talking to my friends." The words stung more than they should have. But I wasn't about to back down. "I don't care about your friends," I replied, louder now, my frustration building. "I care about us, Naomi. You're slipping away from me, and I'm not going to stand here and pretend I don't notice it." The room went quiet. Naomi's expression faltered, and I could tell Rachel was getting uncomfortable, shifting her weight from one foot to the other. But it wasn't just the silence that made my heart race. It was what happened next. Rachel suddenly spoke up, her voice soft but filled with an eerie calmness. "Maybe he's right, Naomi. Maybe you should talk to him," she said, almost too nonchalantly. Naomi's eyes locked onto Rachel's, but instead of answering, she quickly turned her attention back to me. "What do you mean by that?" she asked, her voice tight with tension. "I'm just saying," Rachel continued, her tone growing colder. "Sometimes the truth doesn't stay hidden forever, and it might be time for you to face it." Naomi looked at her best friend, then back at me, her mouth opening as if she were about to say something. But no words came out. The tension in the room was palpable, and I could feel the walls closing in around me. What was Rachel implying? What was Naomi hiding? I wasn't prepared for what happened next. Rachel leaned in closer to Naomi, whispering something so softly that I couldn't make out the words. Naomi stiffened, her eyes widening as if she had just heard the worst news of her life. And that's when I realized it. There was something going on here. Something I hadn't even considered before. Something Naomi hadn't just hidden from me. She had hidden it from everyone. The air in the room grew thick with tension, almost suffocating. I could feel my heart hammering in my chest, each beat louder than the last. Naomi was still standing there, frozen, her eyes darting back and forth between me and Rachel. I could tell something was off, something more than just her usual avoidance. But what was it? Rachel's words had hit like a punch to the gut, but Naomi wasn't giving me anything. No defense, no apology, nothing. Just silence. I watched her for what felt like an eternity, but it was only a few seconds. Then Naomi's face shifted, and for the first time that evening, I saw a flicker of emotion. It wasn't guilt or sorrow like I might have expected. It was fear. Fear that I had uncovered something. Something she didn't want me to know. Rachel, sensing the shift in Naomi's demeanor, took a small step back. "I think it's time we all go sit down," she said with a forced smile, her eyes never leaving Naomi. It was almost as if she was trying to smooth things over, but the look in her eyes gave me a different impression. I felt like I was being led down a path I wasn't prepared to walk. Naomi gave a nervous laugh, brushing a stray lock of hair behind her ear. "It's fine, really. Let's just enjoy the evening," she said, her voice a little too high-pitched, as though she was trying to convince herself as much as anyone else. But I wasn't convinced. Not by her words, not by her act. The night that was supposed to be just a social gathering now felt like the beginning of something much darker, something I wasn't sure I wanted to uncover. But I couldn't back down now. My curiosity, mixed with a growing sense of betrayal, pushed me forward. We all moved to the living room, but I kept my distance. Naomi sat on the couch next to Rachel, her body language tense, avoiding my gaze at all costs. Her friends carried on their conversations as if nothing had happened, but I wasn't fooled. The air had shifted. I could feel eyes on me. Some out of curiosity, some out of pity. No one knew what had just transpired, but they all knew something was wrong. I could feel it. The discomfort was palpable. As the night dragged on, I found myself growing more and more restless. I couldn't focus on any of the conversations around me. Every laugh, every clink of a glass, felt like it was echoing in my head. My mind kept racing back to Rachel's words, to Naomi's face when she realized I knew something. And then, out of nowhere, Naomi stood up abruptly. "I'm going to get some air," she said, her voice quiet, barely audible over the noise of the room. She didn't wait for anyone to reply. She just walked out, the door clicking shut behind her. It was as if she had just disappeared, leaving me behind in a room full of people who had no idea what was really going on. I sat there for a few moments, my heart pounding in my chest. What had just happened? Why did Naomi leave so suddenly? And why had Rachel said what she did? There was something I wasn't seeing, something hidden just out of my reach. I had to know what it was. I couldn't just let it go. I excused myself from the group, my voice almost robotic as I told them I was going to check on Naomi. As I walked out into the night, the cool air hit my face, but it did nothing to calm the storm brewing inside of me. Naomi wasn't far from the house. I could see her standing at the end of the driveway, staring at the ground, her back to me. I approached cautiously, unsure of what to say. The last thing I wanted was to make things worse, but I had to know the truth. As I reached her, I spoke softly. "Naomi, we need to talk. Please, just tell me what's going on." She didn't turn around at first. Instead, she let out a long sigh, almost as though she was tired of pretending. Finally, she spoke, but her voice was barely a whisper. "I never meant for it to be like this," she said. "I never wanted you to find out." My heart skipped a beat. What was she talking about? Find out what, Naomi? What are you hiding from me? My voice cracked, the frustration finally seeping through the cracks of my calm demeanor. I was done with the lies, done with pretending everything was fine. She slowly turned around, her face pale in the moonlight. Her eyes were red, as though she'd been crying. But there were no tears left, only resignation. "You don't understand, Kevin," she said, her voice shaky. "There's someone else." I felt the words hit me like a physical blow. The air left my lungs, and for a moment, I couldn't breathe. Someone else? All these years, and I had never suspected it. The thought was unfathomable. Naomi wasn't the type of person who would just cheat. Or at least, that's what I had always believed. She was my rock, my partner. But the look in her eyes told me everything I needed to know. "Who?" I managed to croak out, the word barely escaping my lips. She shook her head, as if she couldn't bear to say it. "It doesn't matter. I'm sorry, Kevin. I should have told you sooner." But it was too late for apologies. I had already heard the truth, and it was worse than anything I could have imagined. The world around me seemed to slow down as Naomi's words hung in the air like a thick fog, suffocating everything I thought I knew. Someone else, she repeated, her voice breaking under the weight of the confession. My mind couldn't fully comprehend what I was hearing. It felt like I had been punched in the gut, my entire sense of reality crumbling in an instant. How had I missed it? How had I been so blind? All these years, I had trusted her, loved her, never once questioning the foundation of our marriage. Yet, here she was, admitting to something I had never even dreamed possible. My breath caught in my throat, and for a moment, I couldn't speak. My mind was racing 1,000 miles an hour, trying to piece everything together, trying to make sense of it all. But nothing made sense. Who? I finally asked, my voice hoarse and almost desperate. The question was out before I could even process it, but I had to know. I had to understand the magnitude of what she had done. Naomi took a deep breath, her eyes casting downward as if she couldn't bear to meet my gaze. It's someone you know, she whispered. My heart skipped a beat, and I felt a chill run through my body. Someone I knew? My mind instantly went to all the possible names, all the friends, colleagues, and acquaintances she had interacted with. But I couldn't fathom who it could be. My hands clenched into fists at my sides, the anger bubbling up inside of me. Who, Naomi? I demanded, stepping closer, my voice trembling with a mixture of fear and fury. Please, tell me. She hesitated for a moment, her lips trembling as she tried to find the courage to continue. It's Luke, she finally said, her words barely audible. Luke. My mind raced to make sense of the name. Luke? My best friend. The one person I trusted the most. The person I had considered family. I felt the blood drain from my face. How could this be happening? I had been blind to it all. The late-night phone calls, the lingering looks, the way they always seemed to make excuses to be around each other. But I never questioned it. I had never suspected a thing. Naomi's voice was barely a whisper now, her words a fragile confession. I didn't mean for it to happen, Kevin. It just did. We were both lonely, and it was easy. It started out as nothing, but then, things changed. Her words didn't register at first. How could they? How could she say something like that, knowing how much it would destroy me? You slept with him? I asked, the words barely leaving my mouth as I realized what she had done. Naomi didn't respond at first, but her eyes filled with guilt, the tears threatening to fall. I didn't need her to say anything more. The silence between us spoke volumes. I staggered backward, as if the ground beneath me was no longer stable. I felt the cold night air biting at my skin, but it did nothing to numb the pain that was starting to settle deep inside my chest. The betrayal was unbearable. I had trusted Luke with my life. He was the person I turned to when things got tough, the one who had been there for me through thick and thin. And yet, here I was, standing in the cold, finding out that he had not only betrayed me, but had done so with my wife. The weight of the truth crashed down on me, and I felt like I couldn't breathe. How long? I managed to choke out. My voice felt foreign to me, strained and raw. Naomi hesitated again, her gaze flickering to the ground. A few months, she whispered. It was never supposed to go this far. The words hung in the air, suffocating me. A few months. I had been living a lie for months, while they had been deceiving me right under my nose. I wanted to scream, to lash out, but I couldn't find the strength. The anger that had been building up inside me seemed to dissipate, replaced by a deep, all-consuming sadness. I had been living with a lie, with a false sense of security, and now it was all gone. Naomi reached out for me, her hand trembling. Kevin, please, I'm so sorry. I never wanted to hurt you. I never wanted any of this. But I couldn't look at her. I couldn't bear to hear her voice, to listen to her apologies. All I could see in my mind was the image of Luke and Naomi together, behind my back, in the most intimate way possible. It felt like a betrayal of everything we had built. It felt like my entire world had shattered. I don't know what to say to you, I whispered, my voice cracking. How do I even look at you after this? Naomi stepped back, her face pale, her eyes filled with regret and sorrow. I understand if you can't forgive me, Kevin, but I need you to know, this wasn't about you. It was about me and my own mistakes. I lost sight of what really mattered, and now I see what I've done. The silence between us stretched on, and I could feel the weight of her words settling in. I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what to say. I had so many questions, so much anger, so much pain, but at that moment, All I could do was stand there, frozen, as the truth about everything unraveled before me. Naomi's betrayal was a knife to the heart, and I wasn't sure how to survive it. I don't know how long we stood there, Naomi's hand outstretched in a silent plea for forgiveness, the night air heavy around us. I couldn't move, couldn't speak. I wanted to scream, to lash out, to ask her how long this had been going on, how many times I had looked at Luke and thought of him as my best friend while he was betraying me. But instead, I just stood there, paralyzed. Naomi's voice broke the silence, soft but desperate. "Kevin, please. Say something. Anything." I couldn't do it. I couldn't bring myself to speak, to process the whirlwind of emotions crashing through me. I had never imagined that the one person I trusted above all else could do this to me. But Naomi had. She had turned to him, Luke, my best friend, the one guy I thought would never hurt me, who had always been there for me. I felt like the ground beneath me had disappeared, and I was just floating, drifting in a void of confusion and anger. The image of Naomi and Luke together kept flashing in my mind, taunting me, twisting the knife deeper into my chest. The thought of them laughing together, sharing something I thought was mine, it made me sick. Naomi's voice trembled again, pulling me back to the present. "I'm sorry, Kevin. I never meant for it to go this far. I was confused. I was lonely, and Luke, he was there. He made me feel something I thought I had lost." Her words were like acid to my ears, each one digging deeper into the wound she had inflicted. "Lonely," I repeated, the bitterness in my voice unmistakable. "Lonely enough to sleep with my best friend behind my back." The anger I had been holding back finally surged to the surface. I turned to face her, my fists clenching at my sides. "You know what, Naomi? You didn't just hurt me. You hurt us. You destroyed everything we had. You destroyed my trust in you. And worse, you destroyed my trust in the one person I thought was the closest thing I had to a brother." She stepped back, as if my words had physically pushed her away. "Kevin, I know. I know what I did was wrong. I've been living with this guilt, but I didn't know how to fix it. I didn't know how to make it go away." "You think saying you're sorry makes this better?" I scoffed, my voice rising with each word. "How do you fix something like this? How do you come back from this?" Naomi stood there, her head bowed, her face a mixture of guilt and regret. She wasn't looking at me now, and I couldn't blame her. I didn't want her to look at me either. The woman I had loved, the woman I had trusted, had become a stranger in front of my eyes. "Kevin," she whispered, her voice cracking. "I never meant to hurt you. I swear to God, I didn't. But I understand if you can't forgive me. I wouldn't blame you if you never spoke to me again." Her words hit me harder than anything else. She was ready to give up on us. She was prepared to walk away from everything we had built because of one moment, one choice, one mistake. But it wasn't just her mistake, it was his, too. Luke had been my friend, my confidant. We had shared everything. And yet, he had betrayed me. He had watched me suffer in silence, knowing all along what was happening, what he was doing behind my back. I had spent so many years believing in the bond we shared, only to find out it was all a lie. Naomi's voice pulled me from my spiraling thoughts. "I'm not asking you to forgive me, Kevin," she said softly. "I'm asking you to understand that I was weak. I was looking for something I thought I had lost, and I made the biggest mistake of my life. I hurt you in the worst way possible, and for that, I am truly sorry." I was shaking with anger, with disbelief. I wanted to yell, to scream at her, but I couldn't. I didn't have the strength. The pain in my chest was too overwhelming. Instead, I took a step back, the distance between us growing with every passing second. "I don't know what you want from me, Naomi," I said, my voice low and filled with bitterness. "I don't know how you expect me to forgive you after everything. After he did this to me. After everything you both did to me." She swallowed hard, trying to maintain her composure. "I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't expect you to forget. I just wanted to be honest with you. For once, I wanted to stop lying. And I didn't want to keep living this lie anymore." The silence between us stretched on, and I could feel the weight of her words sinking in. But nothing felt real. My life, my marriage, everything I thought I knew had been shattered in a matter of minutes. The person I had built my life with, the person I had trusted more than anyone, had betrayed me in the most intimate way possible. And the worst part was, I didn't know what to do next. Where did I go from here? Could I ever trust her again? Could I ever look at Luke the same way? My heart ached at the thought. I didn't want to walk away from Naomi. I didn't want to let go of everything we had. But how could I stay when the foundation of our relationship had crumbled beneath me? I turned away from her, unable to look her in the eye any longer. I don't know what's going to happen, Naomi, I said quietly, my voice breaking. But I can't do this. I need space. I need time to figure out what to do with this mess you've made of my life. Naomi didn't reply. She just stood there, staring at me, as I walked away, leaving behind everything we had built. The night felt endless as I walked away from Naomi, the weight of her betrayal hanging heavy in the air. Every step I took felt like it led me further away from the life I had known, the life I had trusted so completely. My mind was in a blur, the cold wind biting at my skin as I moved aimlessly through the streets. I didn't know where I was going or what I was supposed to do. I felt like a ghost, disconnected from everything around me, from the reality I had once believed in. The betrayal wasn't just about Naomi, it was about Luke too. The idea that my best friend, the one person I thought I could trust with everything, had been sleeping with my wife, was a reality I couldn't quite grasp. My hands trembled as I pulled out my phone, my fingers hovering over his name. I wanted to call him, confront him, demand answers. But something inside me stopped me. What would I say? Hey Luke, how's it feel to steal my wife? No, that wasn't how this was going to go. I couldn't even form the words in my head without the rage building inside me. But I couldn't leave things as they were. Naomi had confessed to everything, but there were still pieces missing. There was so much I didn't know, so much that I had to figure out. I didn't want to speak to her right now, but I needed answers. I needed to understand how far this had gone, how long it had been happening, and why I had been so blind. After what felt like an eternity, I found myself standing outside Naomi's apartment. I hadn't realized where I was going until I was standing in front of the door. My mind was still a mess, my heart pounding as the emotions continued to rage inside me. I could feel the anger bubbling up again, but underneath it all, there was still the hurt, the sense of betrayal that was gnawing at me from the inside. I rang the doorbell before I even had the chance to stop myself. Naomi opened the door after a moment, her face pale, her eyes red from crying. She didn't say anything at first, just stared at me as if she was waiting for me to say something. But I didn't know what to say. The words felt like they were trapped inside my chest, too painful to be spoken aloud. Finally, I found my voice, though it was shakier than I wanted it to be. I need answers, Naomi, I said, my voice strained. I can't just walk away without understanding what happened. I can't just forget what you've done to me. She stepped aside, her eyes filled with a mixture of regret and fear, and I walked into the apartment. The silence between us was thick, suffocating. She led me to the living room, where we both sat in silence for a moment. The weight of the moment hung heavy in the air, neither of us knowing what to say. Finally, Naomi broke the silence. I don't expect you to forgive me, she said softly, her voice trembling. But I need you to understand that it wasn't about you. It was about me. I was unhappy, Kevin. I was lost, and I let myself get caught up in something I should never have. I clenched my fists, trying to hold back the anger that threatened to spill over. You're telling me this wasn't about me? I asked, my voice thick with disbelief. You slept with my best friend, Naomi. How could it not be about me? She flinched at my words, but didn't look away. I didn't mean for it to happen, Kevin. It wasn't something I planned. It just happened. And once it did, I didn't know how to stop it. How could you not know how to stop it? I replied, my voice rising with frustration. How could you let it go on for months without saying anything, without thinking about how it was going to destroy everything? Naomi's eyes filled with tears again, and I could see the guilt in her face. I know, Kevin. I know. I made a huge mistake, but I don't want to lose you. I know I don't deserve a second chance, but I'm asking for one anyway. I'm sorry for everything I did. The apology hung in the air, but it didn't feel like enough. I didn't know if anything would ever feel like enough. I had spent years building my life around Naomi, around this marriage. And now, it felt like everything had been a lie. I stood up abruptly, not wanting to hear her words anymore, not wanting to be in this place. I don't know if I can ever forgive you, Naomi, I said quietly, my voice heavy with sadness. I don't know if I even want to try. I could see the hurt flash across her face, but I couldn't bring myself to care. The truth was too painful, and I didn't know how to move past it. The betrayal was too deep. As I turned to leave, Naomi's voice stopped me. Please, Kevin, she pleaded, her voice cracking. Don't go. I need you. Her words echoed in my mind as I walked out the door, but I didn't turn back. I couldn't. I didn't know what was worse, the fact that Naomi had betrayed me, or the fact that I was still standing here, trying to figure out if I could forgive her. The pain was unbearable, and I didn't know how to move forward. But I knew one thing for certain. My life would never be the same again. I didn't know what I was doing anymore. I walked aimlessly through the streets, my feet taking me to places I hadn't planned on going. The world around me seemed to spin, to blur, as I replayed the conversation with Naomi over and over in my mind. The things she had said, the apology she had begged for, it all felt like a weight pressing down on my chest. But no matter how many times I tried to rationalize it, I couldn't shake the feeling that everything had been ripped apart, everything I had trusted, everything I had built. The night was cold, but I didn't feel it. I barely noticed the streetlights flickering above me or the occasional car passing by. All I could think about was what Naomi had done, what Luke had done. The betrayal felt like a sickening, sharp edge inside me. I didn't know how to move forward from this. I reached a bench in the park, sitting down heavily as my mind raced with anger, hurt, and confusion. I looked at my phone, my thumb hovering over Luke's name. I had been avoiding calling him, but I couldn't hold off any longer. He deserved to hear the truth, the same truth that Naomi had finally admitted to me. I had trusted Luke. He was the guy I had confided in about everything, about Naomi, about my life, my dreams, my struggles. And now, I realized, he had been a part of the destruction of it all. The phone rang once, twice, 3 times. And then, his voice came through, calm and casual, as if nothing had changed. Hey man, what's up? The casual tone in his voice was like a slap to my face. I could feel my pulse quicken, the anger rising inside me like a tidal wave. What's up? I repeated, my voice trembling with barely contained rage. What's up, Luke? Is that you've been sleeping with my wife for months. How do you explain that? There was a long pause on the other end, and then I heard him let out a slow breath. Kevin, don't even try to explain yourself. I cut him off, my voice low but deadly. You've been hiding behind my back, betraying me like I'm nothing. You've been with her, Luke. You were with her while I was trusting you both. How long were you planning to keep this from me? I could hear the panic in his voice now, the hesitation. Kevin, listen. It wasn't like that. It just happened. The words felt hollow, meaningless. No, don't tell me it just happened. I spat, standing up from the bench and pacing back and forth. You knew. You knew exactly what you were doing. How long, Luke? How long have you been doing this behind my back? There was another long silence, and then his voice cracked. A few months, man. But it's not like you think. We didn't plan it. It wasn't. It wasn't about you. It just stopped. I yelled, my voice echoing through the empty park. Don't give me that bullshit. I don't want to hear how it wasn't about me. You slept with my wife. You ruined everything we had. You took everything from me. I paused, trying to catch my breath. My chest felt tight, like the weight of everything pressing down on me was too much to bear. I thought you were my friend. I thought you were someone I could trust. But you've broken me, Luke. You've shattered me. And I don't know how I'm supposed to look at you the same way again. His voice was quiet when he spoke again, almost pleading. Kevin, I'm sorry. I didn't want to hurt you. I never meant for it to go this far. But I can't change what happened. I'm sorry. The words felt empty. Sorry didn't fix what had been broken. Sorry didn't erase the betrayal, the lies, or the pain. Sorry isn't enough. Luke, I said coldly. I can't just forget this. I can't pretend it didn't happen. I hung up the phone without waiting for a response. I didn't care what he had to say anymore. The damage had been done, and nothing he could say would make it better. I stood there in the middle of the park, my breath coming in ragged gasps, as the reality of it all sank in deeper. Naomi and Luke. Together. Behind my back. My best friend, the person I trusted more than anyone, had betrayed me in the worst way possible. The woman I loved, the woman I thought I could rely on, had turned on me. The 2 people I had considered my closest allies had torn my life apart. I didn't know how to fix it. I didn't know how to move on. Everything I had known felt like a lie. I wasn't sure who I was anymore, or who I was supposed to be. The hurt, the betrayal, it all felt too much to carry. I didn't know where I was going from here, but one thing was clear, nothing was ever going to be the same again. The world I had known was gone, and I was standing in the ruins of it, trying to figure out how to rebuild, if I could rebuild at all. The darkness in my chest was suffocating, and I didn't know how to escape it. The days after that night felt like they were stretching into eternity. I couldn't escape the feeling that my life had completely unraveled. The threads of everything I thought was solid now scattered and torn. Naomi's apology echoed in my mind, but it felt like a faint whisper against the roar of my emotions. I wasn't sure how to even begin to deal with the mess I was in. The anger was still there, a burning fire inside me, but it was joined now by an overwhelming sadness, a sense of loss that I couldn't explain. I had always thought that if things went wrong, if the worst happened, I'd at least have control over how I handled it. But I didn't. I was spiraling, and I couldn't stop it. I had tried to stay busy, burying myself in work and distractions. But even when I wasn't thinking about Naomi or Luke, they were there, lurking in the background of my mind, waiting to drag me back into the chaos. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't eat. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw their faces. Naomi's tear-streaked face when she begged for forgiveness, Luke's desperate apology on the phone. I kept replaying those moments over and over, searching for answers, trying to make sense of it all, but it never added up. The worst part? I still didn't know what to do. I didn't know if I could forgive Naomi, if I could ever look at her the same way again. Could I trust her? Could I ever go back to the person I was before everything shattered? The more I thought about it, the more the anger consumed me. But there was also a part of me that still loved her, a part of me that wanted to believe it could be fixed, that maybe she could change. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized how far gone we were. One evening, a week after the phone call with Luke, I found myself standing in front of Naomi's apartment again. I hadn't planned on coming here. I didn't even know why I was outside her door, but I couldn't stop myself. The urge to talk to her, to understand what had happened, had been gnawing at me. I was tired of the silence, tired of the questions I couldn't answer. I needed closure, even if I wasn't ready to hear it. I rang the doorbell, my heart pounding in my chest. It felt like 1,000 pounds were pressing down on me as I waited. A few moments passed before she opened the door. Naomi stood there, looking like she hadn't slept in days. Her eyes were tired, her face pale, as if the weight of everything was finally starting to break her down. She looked at me for a moment, as if unsure whether to let me in, but then stepped aside. "Kevin," she said softly, "I wasn't expecting you. I don't know what I'm doing here," I muttered, walking into the apartment without waiting for an invitation. "But I can't keep doing this, pretending like nothing happened, pretending like I'm okay." Naomi closed the door behind me, her hands trembling as she turned to face me. "I didn't think you'd come back," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "I understand why you wouldn't." There it was again, that guilt in her voice, that familiar ache in my chest. I wanted to scream at her, to tell her how much she had hurt me, but instead, I just stood there, feeling the distance between us growing wider. I wanted answers, and yet, I didn't know if I could handle what she had to say. "You destroyed everything, Naomi," I said, my voice thick with emotion. "You and Luke, you both lied to me. You betrayed me in ways I never even imagined. And I can't just forget it." She nodded, her eyes brimming with tears. "I know," she said quietly. "I don't expect you to forgive me, Kevin. I don't even deserve it. But I need you to know that I never meant for any of this to happen. I never meant to hurt you." I looked away from her, staring out the window into the dark night. I didn't want to hear the apologies anymore. I didn't want to hear her say she was sorry. It wasn't enough. Nothing she said would ever make it right. But as I stood there, staring into the night, I realized something. I didn't know what to do anymore. I didn't know if I should stay, if I should walk away, or if there was even a chance for us to fix what was broken. All I knew was that I couldn't keep living in this limbo. Naomi stepped closer to me, her voice barely above a whisper. "Kevin, I need you to understand something. I never wanted this. I never wanted to hurt you. I was lost, and I let that lead me down a path I never should have gone down. But I love you, and I want to fight for us. If there's any chance we could fix this, I'll do anything." The words hung in the air between us. I could see the desperation in her eyes, but I didn't know if I could trust it anymore. I didn't know if I could trust her. "I don't know if I can believe you, Naomi," I replied, my voice quiet but firm. "I don't know if I can ever look at you the same way again. I don't know if I can go back to what we were." She reached for me then, her hand trembling as she placed it on my arm. "Please, Kevin," she said, her voice breaking. "I don't want to lose you. I love you. I could hear the sincerity in her voice, and for a moment, I almost believed her. But then, a flash of Luke's face crossed my mind, and I felt the anger bubble up inside me again. How could I ever trust her after everything? How could I trust anyone again? The truth was, I didn't know what to do. I didn't know if I could move past this, if I could forgive the people who had shattered me. I didn't know if I could keep fighting for something that might not even be worth saving. But as I stood there, Naomi's hand still on my arm, I realized one thing for sure. Whatever happened next, my life would never be the same again. And no matter how much I tried to fix it, I would always carry the weight of this betrayal. Days turned into weeks, and the weight of the decision I was avoiding began to consume me. Naomi and I had spent those weeks talking, really talking. There were tears, there were silences, and there were moments where it felt like the pain of what had happened might be too much for either of us to overcome. But there was also something else, something I hadn't expected. Amidst the heartache, there was still a thread of love between us, still the echo of the bond that had once brought us together. It wasn't gone, not completely. The truth was, I had never stopped loving Naomi. The betrayal had broken me, yes. It had shattered everything I thought I knew about trust and loyalty. But as we spent more time together, I realized that forgiveness wasn't just about letting go of the past. It was about understanding the mistakes we made and choosing to move forward, not because we had to, but because we wanted to. Because we believed that we could still create something beautiful from the ruins. Naomi was committed. She was determined to prove that she could be the woman I needed her to be, not just for me, but for herself. The way she was working to rebuild the trust that had been shattered, the way she was showing up for me, for us, it was something I hadn't seen before. It wasn't about grand gestures or empty promises. It was the quiet, everyday moments where I saw her making an effort, where I saw her remorse not just in words, but in action. And as for Luke, well, that was still complicated. I didn't know if I could ever fully forgive him for what he'd done. But time, I realized, would tell. I wasn't ready to let that chapter go entirely, but I was learning to let go of the anger. It wasn't easy, and it wasn't quick, but I was trying. One evening, about a month after the night we'd had that conversation in her apartment, Naomi and I found ourselves sitting together in the park where I had first walked aimlessly in the dark, lost in my thoughts. It felt different now, calmer, quieter. There was a peace that hadn't been there before. As I looked at her, I saw the woman I had loved all along. The woman who had made mistakes, yes, but who was also willing to fight for what we had. I know we can't undo the past, Naomi said, her voice soft but steady. But I'm here now, and I want to make things right. I want to rebuild what we lost. I love you, Kevin. And for the first time in weeks, I didn't feel the weight of the past crushing me. Instead, I felt a spark of hope, something that had been buried beneath all the pain and anger. I didn't have all the answers, and I didn't know what the future would hold. But I knew that I wanted to give us a chance. I wanted to take the risk, to try again. I love you too, I replied, my voice full of emotion. And I'm willing to try. I'm willing to rebuild this, if you are. She smiled, a real smile this time, the kind that reached her eyes. And in that moment, I realized that the road ahead would be long. There would be challenges, there would be scars, but there was also a chance for something new, something better. And that was enough to make me believe in the possibility of a future, together. As we sat there, side by side, the world around us seemed a little brighter, a little more hopeful. It wasn't perfect, and I wasn't sure if it ever would be, but as long as we kept choosing each other, we could build something better than what we had before. The past was behind us, and the future was waiting. And for the first time in a long time, I felt ready to step into it, hand in hand with the woman I loved.